Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Dawson. Welcome to Leader Talk. This show is proudly brought to you by Brainiact. Each week we are meeting with incredible leaders from around the world to discuss all things leadership and business insights. Each person coming on this talk show has given up their valuable time for one very clear purpose: to give back to small and medium business owners. Now, most of us have dealt with financial issues in one way or another, whether it's a cash flow issue, dealing with overdue invoices, or even financial hardship. Today, my co-host, CEO of Peerlight, Gus Arianto, and I are fortunate to chat to our guest speaker, Vanessa Stoykov, financial educator, best-selling author, and CEO of Evolution Media Group. Vanessa is here today to discuss money matters, the importance of being resilient business owners, as well as the power of storytelling. Welcome to the show, Vanessa.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Vanessa, for donating your time for our audience all over the world. Yeah.
I'm happy to be
Thank you,
here.
Vanessa. We always begin this show with asking our guests two fun questions. So we do have yours. And the first is, if you could learn a new personal skill, what would it be?
I'd like to fly. I'd like to do hang gliding. I used to have dreams when I was a kid that I could fly, and it was like I had the hat on from the Flying Nun, and I could fly with that hat on. It wasn't, obviously it was pre-teen years, but I always wanted to fly. So that would be what I would learn.
Oh, that's an awesome one. What about you, Gus, out of curiosity? Any personal skill you'd like to learn?
For me,
Yeah.
I wanna, you know what? I wanna learn how to cook. I wanna learn how to cook, but not your standard like food that is available. I really wanna learn difficult food. Like something from different countries that is not existence in the common restaurants. I love
You're
food.
going Heston Blumenthal on this thing, okay?
Yes, like that, exactly, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, I
cooking.
can now tell a lot about you from wanting to do that.
Yeah, cooking noodles. I'm an expert.
Yeah. All right, cool.
You will see, Vanessa, Gus throws in quite a few food references throughout our shows all the time, so it makes sense.
I do love foods.
And our second one, if you have to sing karaoke, what song do you pick to sing?
I'll tell you what I did pick to sing with my best friend when I was 17 on our We've Left School tour. You've Lost That Loving Feeling, and it was one of the best moments of my life. It was in a very small pub in Huskinson on the south coast, and literally we had the crowd on their feet singing with us and clapping, and I had that moment of, oh my God, this is what it'd be like to be a rock star. And then my career was over, but
Love it, absolutely love it. Now, Vanessa, I gave a little brief intro to you at the beginning, but it doesn't do it justice. We'd love for you to share with our audience. Tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and your business.
Well, it made me sound good in the intro. I always listen to those things and think, wow, she sounds awesome. And then you're like, oh, that's right, that's me. But then you get to know me and realize, okay, I grew up in Gunnedah, rural New South Wales, so country girl. And everyone's like, what's in the water in Gunnedah? Because that's where Miranda Kerr came from, right? So been a few winners from Gunnedah, quite a few. Khyber TikTok, the horse. There's so many people from Gunnedah, and we all know all the famous people from Gunnedah. And so it's a town pride thing. My dad was an immigrant from Serbia, so he came here in his 20s and traveled the country, learnt to speak English through the Work for Australia scheme. So my dad was absolutely the most resilient, incredible man. He died 4 years ago, but also, spoke 7 languages. Well, I loved my Eastern European father, and I grew up in a small town where he worked in a coal mine, and he was the WOG in Gunnedah. But to be honest, I don't think any of us minded that because he was so different than everyone else. I just loved that man. And he grew up thinking women can do anything. I don't know, Eastern European, my mother said I was so lucky to meet someone like him back in the day. She came from the country, from Nundle, which is a tiny little town outside Tamworth. And went to Sydney, did nursing, met Dad very young, and he was older. He told her he wasn't much older, but apparently he was 14 years older, it turned out. So fell in love with him, and then he just became this person who wanted to raise a family and give them everything, as so many immigrant stories are, So I grew up in the country in this ideal relationship. My mum stayed home and looked after us and was a fantastic mum and gave us all the attention, and Dad worked in the mines. And I've had an idyllic childhood. In saying that, we didn't have that much money, but in Gunnedah we all had about the same. Like you had a house, a weatherboard house on the street, and you went to, I never thought we didn't have much. So let's put it that way. I always felt we had everything, and I hadn't been to the Sydney. So then I went to the city and went, oh, okay. It's like my dad telling me, you are the most beautiful, you are the winner. And I'm like, hell yeah. Like I grew up with confidence like through the roof. And then I got to the real world and went, oh, like you lied. But by then he had ingrained this sense of confidence in me, and my mum, but she always pushed me, right? I was good at school. So I was getting marks in English, history, economics, anything that you could persuade people. Numbers, not so much. Black and white, I don't like. The shades of grey is me. But I went to journalism school out of uni, and my flatmate there was Will Anderson, the comedian. So the year was full of journalism students that have just done incredible things with their lives. That's what happens when you get old. I'm 49 now. But I met my best friends there, Anthony Perring, Rebecca Welsh, like the people that I lived with. I loved uni, loved it, have made lifelong friends. And my first job in journalism was Investor Weekly mag. In saying that, I always tell people I applied for Trucking Weekly, and I also applied for Equestrian Weekly. And either of those would have been a good gig. So, and I met Lindsay Fox years later. I interviewed him, and he's like, yeah, right, fuck love, you would have been brilliant. Like, and I think I probably would have because whatever I've done, I've been really interested in and passionate about the people in it, right? It's always the people for me and their stories. So first job, Investor Weekly, suddenly I'm writing about institutional finance out of uni, which is billions of dollars being invested globally. And I had no idea that the editor, and I'm still great friends with Greg Bright, my first chief that I called, was like, go out and get a story and don't come back. You won't have a job if you don't, at conferences like Towards 2000 Super and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to say? But I just went up to people and I wrote down every word they said. I was bloody good at shorthand, to be honest. And then they came back to me and went, you've got an incredible understanding of what I told you. And I'm like, no, I pretty much just said what you told me, but I'm sure there's a difference. But I started to understand what they were saying, and it didn't come naturally or easily because I am not a math person, right? So I never would have grown up going, oh, I'm into finance. Like I started as a journalist, and I consider myself a storyteller, hence I started a production company at 26. But I fell in love with financial services because that was my first job. And then he had to make me redundant because it was a industry newspaper and he had to go to black and white print and get rid of his one journalist. I was out there selling subscriptions at $396 for this Investor Weekly mag. And I got a job at an insurance company, Zurich. And the guy there said to me, and I had been retrenched and Greg had put me in touch with him, whatever you're on, I'll double it. And I was like, ooh, I was on 26 grand as a journalist. So I was like, ooh, I'm on 60. I don't think you could afford that. And he was like, yeah, done. And I'm like, oh.
Amazing.
And then a couple of years later, I got a call from Uma Sananakone, one of my brilliant mentors, who's, one of the most powerful women in finance, now lives in New York, saying, you don't know me, but I know you and I want to hire you. And I thought, oh my God, how's my arm? Like, oh, well, that would be at 150, yeah, no problem, done. And I'm like, oh. So everywhere I went in finance, like people were willing to pay the kinds of money I'd dreamed about in my life. You might guess I'm a greedy girl. I like pretty things. I wanted a BMW by the time I was 25. Like I love designer clothes and not all designer. I've worn Carla Zampatti for a long time. So I had, and she has always, I struck a deal with her, a commercial deal. So a lot of my clothes are very cheap or don't have to pay for. And that's been one of the makings of me as a business person, is the way I've been able to present myself. So listening, if you're listening and you run a small business, like I have bootstrapped a business for 23 years, but a lot of it's been around my brand, and my brand has been, my bond is my word, right? If I tell you I'll do something, I'll do it. If I agree I'll pay you something, I'll pay it. I mightn't be able to pay it on time sometimes, and we're going to talk about cash flow, but I'll pay it. And I've always been authentic in an industry where perhaps, people would be afraid to be authentic because then you look stupid. Everyone in finance is incredibly educated. It's a very competitive industry. They are very stressful jobs. And I never wanted to work that hard. I was like, hell no. I wanted to get home to Bold and the Beautiful at 4:30 when I worked for a fund manager. And I was like, I don't think I fit in. But hence I left and started Evolution when I was 26. I left my 150 grand job and the CEO that I loved, and a business where I got to lunch out at level 41 and all the places. One of my good friends, Barry Sekos, he was the lawyer at the firm, and I told him of this. He'd written this email to the CEO saying, lunch with Vanessa. Just so you know, this is where Vanessa's dined out on the company in the last month. Rockpool, level 41, Mario's, it was, the late 90s. And by God, did I do the restaurant scene. But I was encouraging people to understand that business. And they were high-powered people who would spend time with me and then find me amusing and then look at that business. So what was that worth to them? Every cent, they said, and I ended up starting a major industry body through them because I had them sponsor it, called Fund Executive Association, FEEL, for chief executives of super funds. And again, my first boss, Greg, it was his idea. And he's like, Vanessa, I reckon these fund secretaries back then, 20-something years ago, 28 years ago, 27, there was no CEOs of multi-billion-dollar super funds. They were called fund secretaries, and they were like public servants. They had the staff super of corporate companies, and it was a very, very cottage industry. And now we've got the fourth biggest pension saving system in the world, and this is one of the most powerful industries in the world. But I grew up with them because that's the only business I've ever worked in. So all the people that were my age and friends now all run major gigs, which is really useful when you want things to happen and you can call people and go, hey, about this. And I don't know, I feel like finance is misunderstood because no one wants to lose the poker face, and they're really intelligent and they talk in acronyms and things that are hard to understand. So I kind of quickly figured out if I could be the interpreter for this, the translator, the bridge, I always called it the bridge between finance and the real people. That's kind of where my gig lay. So in starting Evolution Media, I started as a PR firm. I didn't have any money. I had 14 grand saved up and I spent 10 of it on a launch party. But Jesus, that party was good. Like I had lasers, smoke machines, like my color was purple for Evolution. And my brother had made, my younger brother, who was a barman at the time, big purple cocktails. And like he lit the bar when the lasers came out and Jamiroquai was on. All these old finance people were like, what? Like as we were pumping smoke into the Argyle Centre because they had never seen anything like it. But I knew that night that I could make these people have fun and that I could make them cooler. And I still say that to them all the time. You're actually interesting people. You just don't show it. And so I've spent years writing books, making shows, doing, I created a whole business called No More Practice Education. And really, I started with a reality show around my girlfriend was pregnant and she had a financial planning business. She was my financial planner and she wanted to sell it. And so I made up a show where she sold her business, and I went and got Mark Boris and the guy that ran AXA and a woman who ran Colonial First State and said, will you be the judges? So I made up a format, and then I had them bidding on this show, and then suddenly AMP were buying her and they were like, you've just driven up the price millions. And I realized, hang on a minute, there's power in this reality thing. And so I'd done straight news, I'd done super news, like I'd done PR, we'd done marketing, but I knew storytelling was the answer because storytelling makes people feel things, and money is something that people feel about. They don't feel about finance or financial services or superannuation or tax. None of those words are sexy words. But one of my tags on my podcast is money is sexy, finance is boring. So again, being that bridge, how do we make people find it interesting? Because at the end of the day, it's like me saying I want to lose 10 kilos, but I'm down the muffin. Like, it ain't going to happen, sister, because you're not doing the work. And I'm well aware of this. But I want people to do the work around their own money, but they've got to find a way in where they feel like they're going to get somewhere and they're confident and they're excited about it and it's transformational. It's not, I can't have it and I need a budget. And there's plenty of other people who can teach you good budgeting. There's so many good money experts out there at the moment. Again, I'm not really one of them in that sense. Like, I'm more of someone who wants you to talk about it and lose the taboos around it because it's holding you back, and it's held me back. And I know I've heard a lot of sad stories, actually. It breaks my heart around money and people. And I think there's a lot of issues. I've got 3 sons, and my husband and I have been together a long time now, 20 years, and we've raised 3 boys that are pretty bloody impressive, to be honest, 19, 17 and 13. But we've put our life into these boys, and we raised the kids in the business. Paul, his nickname's Woody, left work after, we were going to have another baby, a second one, at advertising, and said, let's work together. I wanted him too, because this business, I wanted to work still, right? I couldn't leave the kids. So he came with me, and we built an office, and we hired a nanny on staff. And that was the best 70 grand a year I ever paid a staff member for 12 sweet, sweet years, because I didn't realize how hard it would have been to have 3 kids and work if I didn't have that person. But we'd put them in place since they were born, really. I went back to work a week later with them and hiring a nanny. And they were like a mother to me. I was like, because my mum and dad weren't close. So they were in Gunnedah, and then they moved to Wagga. So in Sydney, we didn't have the support. So that person to us, our family, was and we still are wonderful friends with the nanny because they were a family member. And I would say to not just women, to men too, when you have kids or you want to change your life, think about how you can structure your life, not just so it's about the money, but so you can have the life you want. If you do have your own business, how can you put a childcare person in that? Like, how much will you love that if someone's done your washing and cooked your dinner and your kids have had all the attention, which every kid wants all the attention. We all know it. Like, but you can't give that when you're working as well. And it's annoying. Like, I sound horrible, but I'm like, nobody actually wants to do that all the time, right? Like, but if you get the right sort of person in your home that loves your kids, it's a beautiful thing. Again, I gave up money in that budget for Evolution because we worked together. We made less then because my husband was on a lot of money in advertising. So, but we had that life, and he was there all the time, and he changed the nappies and carried the babies. And I mean, he's been the most incredible dad, but he hasn't had to go to work like a lot of men have and leave them behind, and that's been so good for him. And our boys are so good because they've had their dad in their life the whole time too. And I really believe you can tell I worship my own father. My boys, like, I am a lover of men. In saying that, the sisterhood, I'm part of the sisterhood too. My girlfriends are everything, but I don't go out saying just empower women with money. I think everyone can be empowered with money. And I think there's men in relationships and issues that if they had someone talking to them about their life and what they really wanted in money, they wouldn't be as violent, as angry, as in despair as a lot of men are. And I think I've been quite passionate about that, like talking about that. There's a lady called Jess Hill who I knew in my 20s, and I just thought that girl is going to be something. She's extraordinary. And she wrote a book, See What You Made Me Do. And if you Google, SBS picked it up as a series, and it's around domestic violence, but she actually gave the perspective of men in it and groups that they were going to. Why is this happening? And they'd had such poor modeling, like they didn't have a chance really to be anything but what they'd been modeled to be. And I don't know, I'm very interested in how money has a relationship there, and empowering women and young adults to be financially independent is really good for the family unit, because one person making money and trying to pay for everyone, it doesn't work nowadays unless you earn a squillion. It's too hard. You have to work, like everyone has to. So it's just a different world we live in, and I guess I'm trying with what I'm doing just to make it better in a way, I guess.
Vanessa,
better than I came here for. I don't know. Maybe I'm wasting my time, but anyway, I'm giving it a crack.
It's interesting to hear even, this opening, like I'm sure some of our audience, including myself, when we listen to your story, there's a lot of fun stuff. You mentioning you meeting with Mark Boris, you eating at Rock Pool, you going hard, you really passionate about what you do. But when I also listening carefully, you made a lot of sacrifice, a choice. You can't just meet with someone if you don't make the calls. You will not go somewhere if you don't take risks moving companies. I mean, it's good the way you put it, that you're moving from 100 to 150,000, for example, but no one talk about what would happen if I pick a wrong job, even though it's a better money. What would happen if I sacrifice that X dollars for hiring a nanny from the money that I don't really have as I'm a startup, instead of using that money to go out with my family to watch a movie, for example, or whatever it is. Can you just talk more the importance of selective sacrifice? I call it selective sacrifice because I found, after interviewing so many people, that successful people are very selective in what they sacrifice, and we can all learn from that. But it's not a smooth ride. I'm sure it's not a smooth ride for you either. But when we look back and listening to you, I'm jealous, because it feels like
That means I'm a good storyteller, my friend. All the boring shit, horrible.
Correct, because your roller coaster, it's a fun roller coaster. It's infighting. I want to be in media. You just said before, media is difficult, but I want to be in media. If you mean it, like what's your view around, because it relates to resilience as well. I mean, it's, you come from a country town. People forget that you come from a country town now, because you are everywhere. You have a book, you write a book, you advising people, you are on media. Yeah.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I am everywhere. That's frightening. Well, I'm old. Let's not forget. I'm 49. Next year, I'll be 50. So it's not been an overnight success story by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm a storyteller, right? And that's what excites me. So I wrote my first book that I published 4 years ago, and I published it in 2018. And that was also the year that my father died, and he died in February, and the book was out in May. That was a very bittersweet time for me. A very, there you go. I've been talking about my father to my mum, so he's at the top of my mind. Say something witty, Gus. Get on with it.
Yeah. Well, you know what I love about this is you're very authentic by the way you're expressing, whether it's success, whether your experience, with the thing, and we love it, right? Like, I mean, this is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. We as a representation of small and medium business owners, that's what actually happened. Everyone have a story. Everyone have a sacrifice. Everyone have a difficulties. And how should we handle this? How should we stick to it? How should we? How did you manage your energy when you battling all that stuff? It's come across, right? Like the first 15 minutes, it's like, wow, like either Vanessa have 3 Baroccas this morning, or Vanessa is just a happy person.
No, I've had 2 coffees. I start well, believe me.
But
I'm with you, Vanessa. I'm with you.
But I love this, right? Because it's real, right? Like, you don't just wake up without any challenges, difficulties, sadness, memory. Yet you stick with your purpose. You stick with your goal, and through your storytelling, once again, your roller coaster is so inviting that I want to be in it.
Well, yeah, you can buy a book and get on board, baby. No. I I do have 2 books in market. My next one is Tuesday. So while I digress, it kills me. I think of my father every day, but I rarely get teary anymore. So it's interesting because I'm quite passionate about men hearing the story of how important it is to be a father, and about when you run a business that becomes your world and your identity, man or woman. But I think men have this huge pressure to be a provider. And at the same time, women want liberation, right? We want our own shit. We don't want to be told what to do. My husband will tell you that good and strong. So how does that work in this environment? How does it work? And it works by talking about it and celebrating selective sacrifice. I love the term. I think I'm going to use that off you. I love it. I hadn't thought of it that way. I think if you understand your values, you know what you need to sacrifice. And so my values are family first. And I come from a European family, and my parents were just so good that's always been my priority. I wanted to marry a man who'd be a great father like my dad. Like, I didn't want to marry a man for his money because I was going to make my own. I wasn't interested in that. I didn't need it. And, but I knew I wanted someone that was going to love kids and love family. And so that for me hasn't been a sacrifice. It's been a joy. And I love creativity and freedom. I hate being told what to do. It pisses me off. I don't know what it is. It must be the Irish in me. Everyone says that's mum. Mum's family are Irish. So Serbian Irish is an interesting mix, to say the least. But I hate it. I hate being told what to do. And I have always been willing to put my own money. Someone said to me once, how much are you willing to burn to learn? And I've learned that I'm willing to burn a lot. And because I have wanted to do things that have been in my head, and I want them in the world, and I want them to look how I want them to look, a certain way. And, it's not an option for me to do things another way. It's what I just am compelled to do it, to be honest. It's not even logical. It's just, I know that's what I'm meant to be doing. I hassle all the time. Like, I'm still a media business. I got to make money. I've got to pay people. And, my team are mainly contractors now. I had 29 staff at one point when I owned 2 businesses, and I had a show on Channel 9. And, I was living large up to 40. I had a massive Gatsby party for my 40th. And I'm thinking, I am the shit. I was flying around the world interviewing celebrities for this Channel 9 show. And, I honestly had thought I was invincible, and then it all went to shit, and I bet too much and took out an overdraft on my house, and the show didn't come off for another season, and the other thing I'd built hadn't sold like I thought it would, and I had to sell our house, our family home, to fund my overdraft for the business to keep going. So
and how do you recover? How do you recover from things like that? How do you,
one step at a time, and eating a lot of shit. If I can be frank, I rang every creditor that I had, and I had little people who were doing typing jobs for me. I was a production business, remember? So camera people that counted on the $700 I owed them, and it mattered. And that to me was devastating. And I rang them. And to be fair, the guy who worked for me, who was very good, he rang half as well and took responsibility. But to tell everyone, we can't pay you now, but we will pay you. And I will say to you this in business: treat your creditors like your family. Treat them like your family. Pay them on time. Be respectful of them. Appreciate their work, because you can run a business without overheads of staff if your suppliers feel your family, if they won't let you down. And I run a business on a fraction. I used to have to make 250 grand a month to break even. Now that's a lot. That's a big business. And it's in media, that's constantly selling the next person in, the next pro. If you think you're getting rich promoting books, you're crazy. Like, unless you're Jeffrey Archer or Michael, someone massive, like, you're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. It's just, you've got to find other ways to make money. And everyone talks about a side hustle now. And I think that really came quite naturally to me in my life, because I was always, Evolution Media was the perfect name for my business, because I was always changing. I do PR, I do marketing. And I mean, it sounds like this is over a period of 23 years of running a business though, right? So I can make it sound exciting and interesting, changing and pivoting and letting go of teams and building up again. It's a lot of work, and I'm not going to lie. But again, my father, life wisdom, just never give up. That's the only difference between successful people and ones who don't make it. Just don't give up.
Yeah.
Keep going, man. You could be 1 inch away from that goal. You know, that Klondike thing where after 20 years, the guy's like, oh, I'm just going to give up. And he was like this far away from it striking. And it's like, I never want to be that sucker. Like, I've gone this hard. I didn't come this far to come this far. And there's a way. You will find a way. And take the pressures of your life off you by trying to outsource is my big advice. Like, I have a cleaner now only once a fortnight, although my sons are all coming home from various places. So I'm ramping that up a notch. But I love a clean home. Like, I can't stand mess. Like, I need everything to look the way it looks, OCD, whatever. But I don't want to do it. Like, I'll tidy up things, but I'm not going to go scrub things and vacuum and all that. I don't have the time for that shit. But there is someone who likes doing that and knows I'll pay their invoice every time, and we love her, and like, she's valued. Like, she's someone who's on the team, and on the team, like, I love them all. Everyone that's on my team, my EA, everyone, like, I love them and I care about them, and that makes for a powerful business.
Yeah. But Vanessa, can I ask you? Sorry, Ned, I end up asking. This is exciting
Oh,
stuff.
I've got 1,000 questions I can ask you, Vanessa.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I finally shut up. Sorry, guys.
Maybe I ask this and then I put it back to you, Ned. But
no,
you start this podcast by saying everything I do is focused about people, all about people. Then you're also passionate about money. And sometimes money and people, depending on what we do not go too friendly, depending on the thing. Am I right to say that, Vanessa? Like, I mean, of course, people love money, even though some probably say no. But I think money is something that we need to look after our family to start with, to look after ourselves. How do you balance this, Vanessa? You are very passionate about money, understanding money, making money, getting money. And you're also passionate about people. How people, it's not only the people around you, but people that you're dealing with that you might get money from. So how do we balance this, Vanessa, that we still love, support people, but we shouldn't be shy about, we want to make every money in the right way, of course.
You're talking it. I love the attitude at the end. That's a really good one. Do you know, someone told me once, and obviously, in my gig, I've met a lot of rich people, a lot of billionaires. I made actually the documentary of one of my life inspiration people whose photo is on my fridge of Alan Gray, who is the founder of Alan Gray Investments and Orbis, but he's also the largest philanthropist in South Africa. And his philanthropy funds kids in South Africa from kindergarten through to Harvard, through to coming back and funding their first business as to try and solve the problem of unemployment in South Africa through social entrepreneurs. And he was a visionary. He made many, many billions of dollars, and he never spoke to the media. And because I worked for Orbis, the investment company here in Australia, I met him over a series of years, and he finally became comfortable in talking to me. I went to Bermuda several times to meet him. And I just fell in love with this man's mind. Like, he's honestly, I mean, everyone around him fell in love with him, really. But even in my first book, there's a billionaire in the first book. And Jenny, JJ, who worked at Orbis, was like, is this Alan? And I'm like, maybe. But, and I sent him the book, and he wrote back and said, Vanessa, it's the first book I've read cover to cover in years, because it was a fiction story about 5 people going to their school reunion. And they've all got problems under the surface. So they go and drink tequila and smoke a joint together and then realize their lives are shit, and it's usually due to money. And one of the gang's a financial planner, and he sort of stands out and says what he thinks is happening. And he said, it's the first time I've actually understood what a financial planner's role is. And I'm like, oh, well, there you go. I've educated one of the best investors in the world on financial planning through my fiction story. But in meeting people with money, you know what? Money just amplifies what you already are. If you're an asshole, you'll be a bigger asshole. Like, if you're a cool person, you're going to be cool. Like, for me, it's, the bigger your money gets, the bigger your table gets. Like, it makes it more exciting. You can do holidays with, you can make it. That's why I love it. Like, so it's my nature. Like, so, but I would say to everyone, money is also about freedom. And it's not about, I don't have like piles of cash sitting around my house like Scrooge McGooge. all about just having freedom. Like, yeah, I'm not going to go to work every day because I don't want to. Like, I'm working at home, but I'm not going into an office because an office sucks my energy. I'll go 1 or 2 days a week. That's it for me. But, you know, it's not like I'm not working. So it's, for me, it's choice. If I was there, maybe I'm meeting more people and make more money, but I can't do it too often because my energy, I protect a lot because it creates my stories. See, and I'm, and the book's out next week. And then my audio book, which I did myself and had a ball doing, is out on 1st of November. And people like Walmart in the States have picked up the book, and like Target US. And it's the first time I've worked with an international publisher called Mango. And someone I respect greatly, Lou Johnson here in Australia, who, you know, ran Allen and Unwin and Murdoch and has had an incredible publishing career. She went to Mango and brought me in as one of the authors from Australia. And I've learned so much about search engine optimization, how demand is driven through Amazon, like things that I never understood about. Traditional publishing has just been totally revolutionized. And those who are still doing traditional publishing are dead in the water, in my view, now that I know what I know. So I'll be really interested to see how this goes. But that's been intriguing for me. When I do something, I want to understand how it works, right? But there's so many things I don't want to understand. Like the person who tells you how the watch is made when I want the time, shut it. But if I want to understand an industry or how the money flows, or, you know, someone else smart said to me once, follow the money, V, follow the money. Like, how does this business work? Where's the money there? And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting thought. Follow the money. So there's things that I've learned of thinkers that are just practical stuff that if you get it, you go, oh, okay, I can get how you do that. That I find interesting. So, but again, if you're going to accumulate for your ego, that's a very empty life. Like, it just is. Like, make the world better. If you're lucky enough to be prosperous, then spread it round. Like that's my view.
And so what you're saying is, if you are a small business owner that just start, don't be shy to actually say that the reason I'm in business is to make money.
Of course. I've got goals. I've got plans. This is my dream life. And I'm going to give you a service that you're going to love because I want to get this. And then people go, cool, I want that for you too. Like, I talk about love a lot. It's not a feminine thing, though. It's a life thing. If you love people, they'll love you back, man or woman. They will.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Unless they're a real ass. There's a couple of people I've come across where I'm like, but I think, you know, that there are some people on the side of evil as well. So, you know, you're always going to come across them. That's just life. Most people aren't. Well,
Nat, for the first time ever, after episode number 50, I want to charge our podcast to make money. I'm joking.
But that's not our purpose. Gus, what are you doing? You're flipping it upside down.
I'm joking.
No, but you know what? I reckon if viewers are getting a lot from this, then why wouldn't they be supporting your businesses? You're both doing amazing work, and congrats on doing it. You've obviously done it very well, and it was very professional to deal with you. So you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Very kind of you.
Thank you, Vanessa. You know, I was just looking at time, and we could listen to you for so long. I've got so many questions for you. First of all, Bold and the Beautiful, high five, love it. Even if I tune in
Who's your
once
person?
a year.
Who's your person in Bold and the Beautiful? Who did you like?
I don't love, but Brooke. I was going to say, Brooke, because I can tune in 1 year later and there's some saga still going on. So
I always loved Brooke too, babe. She was the underdog, I felt.
Sorry, Gus, we could talk about Bold and the Beautiful for another whole hour because it's awesome in itself. But I did want to ask you, you know, just listening to your story, like storytelling, we are going to touch on really quickly soon, but just the way you've just taken us on that journey, I think that also business owners are quite ashamed to admit if they do have financial stress. And I do think that we will have people listening today that have been touched by your story because it was incredible. You didn't just tell us what you do, you actually took us on a journey. So do you, for those people that are listening in are actually, you know, they're ashamed to either ask for help, speak up, and they are in financial stress, what advice would you have for them? Even if it was just one takeaway that, you know, they're doing it tough, they don't have anyone to talk to. What do I do? Vanessa has just made me realize that, you know, it is okay to feel like this. What advice do you actually have for them?
Do you know what? I hate it to sound like a blatant book fog because it's not, but it's the reason I wrote the book. The book is called The 5 Conversations About Money That Will Radically Change Your Life. And I honestly believe for those people who are in that position, and I've been there myself more than once, you have to open up the conversation. You have to start talking about the stress of it. You have to start seeing a way out of it, because otherwise your mental health is going to go down the toilet and you can't be any good to anyone then. So, I mean, if you are in severe stress and just keeping head above water and feel like you're not going to be able to pay your debts, the financial debt helpline, like the government has some good resources. So that Money Smart website for a start, good stuff. Like sometimes they make it boring, I'm going to grant you, but it is the government. But there is a lot of calculators and a lot of numbers. So the financial helpline, financial counseling service, that if you're at that level, open your mouth now and don't be ashamed. So many people are in that position. Don't be ashamed. Be proud of yourself that you've come to the point where you know you need help. And everybody needs help sometimes. And that was something my mother said to me. And she lent me money of her own money. And my parents didn't have a massive amount of savings to put into what I'm doing now, because she said, my book, everybody needs help sometimes, darling, and I believe in you. And not everyone has a mum to do that, or a dad, or, you know, not everyone is so lucky. And so sometimes you have to ask for help, and sometimes you have to just know that that's okay. Everybody needs help sometimes. It's okay. It's okay. Like, you'll be okay, and you'll be okay for your family because you start talking about it. So the first conversation in the book is about yourself. What have you learned about money from being a kid that you've taken with you? Have you learned there was never enough? Did you learn that it was hard to make money? Did you learn that you're at the bottom of the tree? Okay, you got to change that. That's the first thing. What are the things you've learned that don't serve you anymore? Because until you acknowledge them, you're going to go on in the same cycle, the same thing. You'll get in the same position. Why are you doing it to yourself? And once you realize what it is, and again, on my website, I've got things like free personality tests, and I mean, they're basic at the moment. I'll get better.
Sorry, Vanessa, what's your website again, just for the audience?
VanessaStoykov.com, VanessaStoykov, VanessaStoykov.com. But on there's a bunch of free shit. There's resources, there's stuff, so you don't have to go buy the book. Sure, I would like you to buy the book. But the second one is with your partner. If you're in stress and you're in a relationship, it's sure to be affecting it, but don't feel you have to carry it alone anymore. You need to start talking to your partner about it, and you need to start talking about the effect it's having on you. And I find when people, I've done counseling many times. I take our kids to counselors. Woody and I have done marriage counseling. It's so useful because it gets you in a frame of seeing things from an outside perspective. And when you're in things, you can't do it. It's impossible. You cannot be objective about a situation. So I find it really useful for that. But I also find it's useful to frame the situation as, here's my story, here's how I'm feeling, because there's no attack in that. Saying you don't work and you put all the stress on me and you're always asking me for money and I don't have it, and that's not positive. And and it's also getting you nowhere. It's a blame thing. And you got to own it. Own it. This is how I'm feeling. I'm disappointed I've come this far. I'm disappointed I'm this age and this is all I've got. I'm disappointed I don't own a house. Own it. Own that shit. It's yours. And then move on, because it ain't serving you and you've still got a life ahead of you to change. So own it, admit it, and then get rid of it. And then start talking to your partner in the same way. You might be surprised what you find out about them. But I also think, I say to people who read my stuff, don't go and talk to your partner once and expect them to get on board. You've done the reading. You're interested in this. You've listened to my stuff. You've obviously done other stuff. Like, don't expect them to get where you are in the first conversation. Money conversations take time, and you have to be prepared to say something, leave something, if it's a resource, a book, a thought, a quote, whatever, and move on, and let them, man or woman, think about it. Think about it. Do you want to change? Like, it just doesn't happen quickly, and people tend to throw blame when it comes to money and not be open about, well, what do we want? And if you start a relationship conversation of what's our dream life, watch what happens. Everybody gets on board. What do we want? Oh, I'd love a house. I'd love a backyard. I'd love to get a dog. I'd love to have kids. Whatever it is, it kind of makes you come together again and remind each other of why you're in a relationship, because you thought you could do so many things together that two was better than one.
Yeah. And Vanessa, you love talking about money. You love talking about success, and you also openly said that you failed at your career and have to get help. Maybe you have to be accountable and own the ship and move on. How do you manage your ego throughout that? Because it's like someone that's saying, money is good. If you know how to do it, you will be successful, and then you fail. Everyone openly, especially you are in media, can see that you are on the top and then you go back down. And when you are at the very bottom, and you love the topic about resilience, how you still have ego as a human being. What advice you give to us when you are in the bottom, talk against what you believe that didn't bring you to the top further? So you talk about money, but then at one point you have no money. I just want to be dramatic, but now you are back on the top. Ego is something that is impacting people differently. What's your advice to all of us here?
Yeah, and that's a big one, ego failure, because you know why? I think that it destroys your faith in yourself. So it's not so much about your ego's wounded, but you start to doubt yourself. And in any adult life, when you learn you're not infallible and when you learn you can fail, it sucks. Because you're like, but it defines you. And I saw a great quote. It's your patience when you're down and how you behave when you're up to other people that define who you are. And I think you've got to go, okay, that didn't work, but what did I learn? It is a bit of glass half full thinking around that shit went bad, but okay, I'll never do that again. The deals that I did wrong last time, I've never made that mistake again. I've made other mistakes, but I'll never make the same one twice. And I think that's how you got to be, because there's no choice, man. It's either get up and be a loser and go back to a life you didn't like anyway, or keep going, find another way. Find another way. You'll get there. Do it.
And I also think, Vanessa, a lot of people these days, they want to become rich so quickly. And, if it doesn't work within a couple of months or even a year, it's already, we'll just shut down that business and, start. But you hung in there for a very, very long time.
Very long time.
And that's what is, you never, ever gave up. So that resilience, that purpose, that drive, and, conveyed through the storytelling is just an incredible, incredible piece. So you've got so many insights and so much advice. We can all just take so much from your story there.
But what is storytelling, if I can bring it back to the basic? If I'm a owner of a cafe, what is the storytelling that we talk about? Do you mind to
for sure, because I love the cafe owners. That's a good one for me, because I love being a regular, right, where you go in and they know what coffee you like and your friends come in, and always my best restaurants and those people, it's all about your story as why you've done it. Who are you as a restaurant? What is in your food? I want to know that. Don't just serve me up something, a muffin and a coffee, and I want to know why you're there, why you're doing it. Put it on your menus, write fun things on your table. There's so many ways you can tell your story. A great friend I talked about that I met at uni, Anthony Perring, they had a restaurant in Yamba, Irons and Craig, him and his partner David, and they won so many international awards for their coffee and their food, and they just do cool things. Ant would collect teaspoons, and everyone got a little Australia teaspoon in their coffee, and those old sort of teaspoons you find in op shops. But his was all about the story of his grandmother and how she inspired him to cook growing up, and so Irons and Craig were their two grandmothers, and that's how the business started. And I just thought, what a great story, because we've all, if you've got a relationship with your nana, and you're going in and there's comfort food. And so what's your story around the cafe? Is it funky? Is it fast? Are you trying to get people caffeinated? And if you genuinely don't have a story, I think you have no passion around what you're doing. And my advice would be to find something that you have got a story, because it's you. If there's no story, then there's no you in it. And that's probably where, you're going wrong.
And I guess there's a lot of people that think stories are often videos. we'll tell the story through a great video. But you've just mentioned it's not just there. Put your story on menus. It can be anything, right, Vanessa? What other mediums could they be using for their stories?
Oh, definitely social media. I mean, you're crazy if you're not on Instagram and Facebook for the oldies, as my kids tell me. It's all about not that when you're younger, but as a business owner, I mean, getting a community around you is important, because then you've got your peeps, right? Who loves you and who do you love? I know that's a ridiculous statement sometimes, but it's everything, because that's the custom for your business. So if you start looking at people through that lens, then you'll start finding ways to connect your story with theirs, and you've got shared goals. I don't care if it's the guy delivering your Coke cans. What's his story? Like, why is he like coming to you over anyone else? Are you giving him a coffee when he comes? Because he'll love that. And he's going to get out in the rain and deliver your shit, where he won't with other people who treat him like crap. So the story starts with everyone and taking an interest in everyone else, not just yourself. Take an interest. Ask a question. The people I don't enjoy talking to, which is probably me right now, are the ones that never ask anything about you. Like, I'm like, why could you not talk to me and know one thing about me at the end of that? Like, but again, everyone wants their message out there. So it's about listening as much as it is talking.
And if for a business owner, let's say someone in construction that's been in there for, they've run a business for 20 years, maybe they're doing well, maybe they're not, whatever their issue is it too late for them to start telling their stories? Like, it's not just for startups, right? Stories are for everyone.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, you might be sitting around a work site telling when you started that business to people and inspiring the next generation of young builders to be wanting to be like you. And then they take a little bit more pride in their work and a little bit more attention to what you say, because you've shared your struggle to get there. So, and getting your team on board is everything. You need a team all pulling in the same direction. And one thing I'm going to be honest about that drove me mad about employing people was that everyone just looked after themselves. And I was like, this is bullshit. Like, I'm paying salaries here. And my husband would he's Scottish, right? So he's more the Glaswegian kiss of death. Like, he'd be like, they're ripping us off, they're having sick days, they're this, and I'm like, yeah, but that means they're not really into this gig, they're not here, they're not caring, because people that care don't do that. And I just ended up finding people in a different financial model. To be honest, they're all people who own their own businesses that work with me now, like most of them anyway, so they care. And I think as a staff member, there's an issue with people not wanting to put in, and there's an issue with people expecting them to give their life and everything, because it's unrealistic. But I think if you can have some shared conversations with your staff around, what do you want out of this? What do you expect showing up? Like, give a shit about them and see what happens. If they're not going to stay, get rid of them fast. Don't deal. That's another thing I will say that I learned. If you've got a bad apple, pluck it, and pluck it fast, because they'll poison the bunch. Every time. That one squeaky wheel is the person that ruins your culture. So if you've got that asshole employee that you're like, nobody likes, get them out. I don't care. If you have to retrench them and pay them out happily and it costs you money and they're gone, do it. I've never had anyone leave, and I've gotten rid of a lot of people who have said, you've screwed me for money. I've always, okay, here's your 4 weeks. Here's your notice period. Go on out. Because they'll ruin everything that you've worked for, and it costs you so much more than 4 weeks' pay.
Yeah. Because we often get asked those questions, you're the business owner.
I'm not very a lawyer.
Hard to. Sorry?
I'm not a lawyer, so when I say get rid of them, do it in a way.
In a nice way. We get you. We get you, Vanessa. But bringing people on that journey, as the business owner, you are passionate about what you do. You want to make the money. You want to make it work. So to employ people to be at that same level as you is really, really hard. And your advice, because, we get asked about this all the time, is to really have open conversations with them.
It's all about that. No one likes talking about money. There was a survey that showed people would rather talk to their boss about having cancer than having financial issues. Oh. And I was like, my God, like, if we're at that point, it really makes me see you've got to open up the dialogue, and you've got to have a culture where you encourage that. If you've got people asking for a pay rise and you get angry and resentful and think, oh my God, you're not even giving me what I need, there's an issue with you. There's an issue with communication. Do they not understand you're not making money? Do they not understand where they fit in and what that role is worth to that business? Because if they did, they sure as shit wouldn't be asking for more. They'd be thinking, oh, gee, I don't like working here, I'm going to leave. Or, gee, this business needs me, I'm going to knuckle down. Like, there's two choices. But if you don't have that conversation and see into their heart, you won't know, and you'll resent them, and they'll do shit jobs. Like, it just is nature. It's human nature. Warren Buffett's partner, Charlie Munger, said, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. So what incentive are you giving people to get an outcome? You know, and if you give them the right incentive that matches the outcome you want, they'll do it every time. Think about the incentive. What's in it for them? So,
the only way we can give the right incentive is if we open the conversation. What do you want to get out of this?
Correct.
Because we assume everyone wants the same thing as us.
Correct.
If people come to an organization, company, whatever it is, for a different reason. I really love your view on this. Fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I think it's about also asking questions of people makes them feel important, and everyone wants to feel valued. And a lot of the time, businesses just aren't saying thank you, and they don't have to pay more. They just have to appreciate the effort and the life force put in. And sometimes, so, you know, I love that you say I'm here. I love making money. And obviously I need to make money because I've got 3 kids and they've gone to private schools. And yeah, like, boy, I've had to make money, but I've never been motivated by the money. And that's a really interesting thing. And I know there's other people like Oprah who've said, I never would have got the money if I hadn't been happy in the first place. And I think I've always been motivated by the freedom and the creation and the things that I do. And I've always had enough money to do whatever I want. And even in my worst hours, I know I've made a pact, call it God, the universe, whatever it is, that I'll always have enough. I know that in my heart. That is my intrinsic belief. There will always be enough. And so even if that's $5 on my card to buy that coffee, it'll be there. And when you start to have that kind of faith in money, then you start to lose fears that you'll fail, because you know there'll always be enough. You might have lots, you mightn't have lots, but you'll always have enough. And it gives you a lot of comfort, actually, to think like that.
Such a beautiful way
Vanessa,
of putting it. It really is.
Just to come back again, so you're releasing a book. The book will be available next week. And what's the title of the book again, Vanessa? So we just want to make sure that it's everyone can get this, because I think it will be a very good book to read.
Yeah, well, thanks. I've done it in a cool way, and I wrote it with someone who I love. Kathy Skantos is an amazing business journalist, and she's one of the people who work with me. She's the ex-editor of news.com, finance editor, and she's actually a brilliant person as well. So she wrote the businessy structure, and then I ripped it apart and I put scripts in it like I do for my characters, and I've put thought bubbles, and I've got me in your head, me talking to you, and all these ways of, it's not a book where you could flick through and go, oh my God, there's so many words. There's a lot of pictures of bubbles of thoughts and things, because I want people to just start going, you know, oh, great, a book about talking about money. Well, what's that going to do? Well, at start, you're going to figure out what you're unhappy about. What's going on with you? Is this where you're at? Like, okay, what are the reasons? Let's list them out. It teaches you how to do that. And then it teaches you to have those conversations. And I script out how you'd talk to your partner about, you want more control with money. Well, how about this? You know, say it like this, because you so many people just get into arguments when it comes to talking about money, that if there's a book and a script and you can go, here's how to do this. And sometimes I'm like, with the relationship, we have the talking cushion, right? If this person's got the cushion, shut up and hear it, because we're both like blah, 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 at each other. And then as soon as the talking cushion rules in, okay, great, you got the cushion, so I'm sitting here waiting for my time, but I'll do it. So little rules like that give you a framework, and you're like, okay, cool. So the 5 conversations about money that'll radically change your life. It's available everywhere around the world as of Tuesday. And I hope people write to me and say they got something. I can't wait to hear the stories again. Like, I hear money stories all day long, and I'm energized by that. I love it. I meet people in the lift, the Uber driver, you name it. I'm out there talking to people, and everyone's got a bloody good money story. And everyone has potential to be better than they are today. Everyone. So
fantastic. Gus, I'm looking at the time. Vanessa, we could do a podcast with you all day. And I would love to.
You'd rather not?
No.
You have a day job?
Like, you know, everything that you've said, like, I have to say before I hand over to Gus to wrap up, you know, we've interviewed a lot of people, but having you here, you were so raw and authentic. And I know you love storytelling and you're good at it, but you've shared a lot of things that, you know, are difficult to share. And you've helped us understand things by sharing your journey and sharing, you know, journeys of people you've met or stories you've told. So I just want to say thank you. There is a lot that I've learned myself, and I know that our listeners have as well. So I'm looking forward to reading this book. We always get a long list of books, but you've energized us to think about ourselves, our purpose, how we do things, you know, hang in there when times are tough. So it's just been amazing speaking to you. And Gus actually has the hardest job now of wrapping up what you've discussed. So
and
good luck, Gus.
It's always hard for me because I'm not a journalist. I do this podcast with Natalie. We started a year and a half ago. I don't even have a studio. This is actually my office. I just put this divider,
and it's very cool. You've got a way about you two. I can see why you've been successful. You're a good pair, but I think you're doing good things. I don't usually blab this much, and I certainly don't cry on air. So you've got something going on.
Thank you. And when I'm so excited, I try to write and I scribble it and I cross it because my focus is really learning from you. So this is what I get. I hope I do this good justice for you, Vanessa. You start the show by saying everything I do is focused about people, all about people. And I have to say it come across strongly, even though the topic we talk about is brutally can be taken wrongly because we talk about money. We talk about something that a lot of people, if you love money, you don't love people, but it didn't come across that way. You also say success is not an overnight thing. Success is not just something that you want and happen tomorrow. I love that because it shows that we all have a chance to be successful, but you need to be able to see that you need to put 20 years as well. Yeah, if you have the right opportunity, you might be successful in 1 year. But I love the way you put it because you are not an overnight success. We can relate to you. Understand your values, then you can select your sacrifice to success. And this is what I like you add. And if you're doing the things, the success to follow your purpose and values, then the sacrifice is called joy. It only can be called joy if your sacrifice is following your purpose and values. Every journey faces many challenges. And when shit happens, then keep moving one step at a time. Never give up. And money is about freedom. If you have issue with money, start the conversation and start your counseling. And if you never give up, you will be back to the top. Be accountable and own the shit. I really like this, right? For your failures and your situation. Then you get help. Then you learn. Then decide to move on. Then the story changes. Take an interest on other people as you can learn, and at the same time, increase your brand and network. Vanessa Stoykov, thank you so much for your time. For the audience, please visit her website, vanessastoykov.com. She's releasing a book, a fantastic book next week. I think we all can learn. What a wonderful interview. Thank you so much for donating your valuable time for us.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been fun. Thanks a lot, both of you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. And thank you everyone for tuning in. For more information on Leader Talk and for some great resources to help your business grow, check out brainiact.com.au. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.